Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are following the money.
We are indeed.
And I don't mean we're looking at, the stock market or global trade or some high-level economic theory.
Yeah.
No, we're looking at something much, much closer to home.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at your wallet, my wallet, and specifically the wallets of the, 3 billion gamers around the world?
It is a fascinating and honestly a slightly terrifying trail to follow.
I was looking at the numbers you pulled for this stack of research, and I actually had to stop and stare at the screen for a minute. I thought I was misreading the decimal point.
Uh-huh.
You've got a figure here for free-to-play games revenue, just free-to-play,
Yeah.
in 2023.
The $111 billion figure.
That's the one. $111.37 billion.
Yeah.
That is billion with a B.
Yeah. And to
Right.
put that into perspective, because it's a number so big, it's almost meaningless, right?
Right.
That is more than the global film industry and the North American sports industry combined. And the really crucial part of that stat isn't just the size of the number, it's the source. That $111 billion accounts for 85% of total gaming revenue.
85%. That's the part that blows my mind. Because I grew up in the era where you went to the store, you bought a plastic cartridge or a disc, you went home, and that was it.
The transaction was over.
The transaction was over. You owned the game. But what you're saying is that the model of buying a box off a shelf is now, statistically speaking, a niche hobby.
It's a relic. I mean, it's completely flipped. The industry has fundamentally shifted from selling products to selling services.
Right.
It's an ecosystem now. It's not about that one-time $60 purchase anymore. It's all about microtransactions, battle passes, gotcha pulls, loot boxes. It's about keeping you engaged and, more importantly, keeping you spending potentially forever.
It's the billion-dollar question, literally. How did we get here? How did we possibly go from dropping a quarter in an arcade machine to an ecosystem where people are spending tens of thousands of dollars on digital swords that don't even, exist in the real world?
And that is the mission for this deep dive. That's what we want to unpack. We are going to trace that evolution. And I don't want this to just be a history lesson of, and then this happened. We need to understand the why.
The psychology behind it.
Exactly. We have some really heavy academic papers in the stack today on something called dark patterns, which is the psychological architecture designed to exploit our cognitive biases.
Dark patterns.
That sounds ominous, like something out of a spy novel.
It sounds it, but it's actually a standard term in user interface design, unfortunately. We're going to look at how developers use these patterns to basically hack your dopamine receptors.
Okay.
We're going to look at the ethical backlashes, the legal battles where governments are finally stepping in, and ultimately try to understand the machinery behind that $111 billion figure. And what's wild is that we tend to think of this as a modern problem. We blame smartphones, we blame Fortnite, we blame the App Store. But looking at the history you've laid out, this goes way, way back.
Much further than most people realize. The DNA of modern monetization was being written while most of us were still, wearing neon windbreakers.
So let's rewind. Let's get out of the App Store. We need to go back to the sticky floors, the cigarette smoke, and the just cacophony of the 1980s arcade, because apparently the first microtransaction wasn't on an iPhone. It was in 1982.
1982. A cabinet called Lost Tomb.
I have never heard of this game.
And most people haven't. It wasn't a smash hit or anything. It was a Stern Electronics game. Pretty standard dungeon crawler for the time. Think Indiana Jones vibes. You're an explorer. There are spiders, scorpions, mummies.
Yeah.
You're running around frantically trying not to die.
Okay, standard arcade fare. I put my quarter in. I get 3 lives. Game over. Put another quarter in.
Usually, yes. And usually when you run out of lives, the screen flashes game over, and you have that 10-second countdown to insert another coin to continue.
Right.
That was the contract. You pay for a retry.
The classic countdown of shame.
Exactly. But Lost Tomb did something different. It didn't wait for you to die. While you were still playing, if you were running low on whips, which was your main weapon, an ad would pop up.
Wait, an ad?
An ad right inside the game interface, a little merchant offer.
In 1982.
1982, and it said 25 whips for 1 credit. That's 1 quarter.
Wait, hold on. That is fundamentally different from insert coin to continue.
It is. It's a huge shift. Insert coin to continue is buying time. This was buying power. This was paying 25 cents to make the current game you're playing easier.
You weren't just paying to play, you were paying to succeed.
You're paying to win, essentially. That is, by definition, a microtransaction.
In 1982. That is just wild. So, okay, did people freak out? Was there a riot in the arcade? Did kids flip the machine over?
Surprisingly, no. The reception was actually positive. Reviews at the time, and we've got some of them here, they praised it. They called it a unique mechanic.
Praise it.
Why it was seen as a helpful option? Oh, you're stuck. Here's a lifeline. It didn't feel predatory.
It's the frog in boiling water.
Precisely. At the time, 25 cents for some extra whips didn't feel like this grand, slippery slope. It felt like a fair trade. Players didn't see the future where that mechanic would evolve into, paying for energy to move or paying to speed up a timer. It was just a quarter.
It's amazing how an idea that's so controversial now was seen as just a helpful feature back then.
Context is everything. It felt like the machine was helping you out, not trying to fleece you.
Okay, so Lost Tomb gets a pass because it felt helpful. But then we jump to 1990, and things get a little more, shall we say, aggressive. We're talking about Double Dragon 3, the Rosetta Stone. Now, Double Dragon, I remember that. That was a huge franchise.
It was the premier beat-em-up. Everybody played it. But for the third installment, the development changed hands, and they introduced what is effectively the first in-game cash shop.
In an arcade game, how does that even work? Are you carrying cash into the game world?
Almost. You would physically walk your character into a shop inside the game level, a little building. And the shopkeeper would offer you items, power-ups, stronger weapons, even extra characters to control.
Okay.
But to get them, you had to insert real coins into the machine right then and there, in the middle of the level.
So it's not just insert coin to continue after you die. It's insert coin right now to get the good stuff so you don't die.
It gets worse. The game was notoriously, punishingly difficult. Borderline unbeatable in its base state. So it wasn't just an option. The design felt like it was twisting your arm. It felt like you needed those upgrades just to survive the next screen.
See, that violates the unspoken social contract of the arcade, doesn't it? The whole deal was always, if I am skilled enough, if I'm good enough at this game, I can beat it on one quarter. That was the dream.
You've hit the nail on the head. Double Dragon 3 broke that contract. It explicitly said, skill isn't enough, you need to pay. And this time, there was a massive backlash.
Okay, so people noticed this time.
Oh, yeah. Western players hated it. It was widely criticized for being unfair, a quarter muncher in the worst sense of the term. In fact, it was so controversial that when the game launched in Japan later, they removed the shop entirely.
So an early victory for the gamers there. They voted with their wallets, or I guess by not opening their wallets, and said,
They did. But the seed was planted. Developers saw that while players hated it, the commercial potential was undeniable. It just needed to be refined. You couldn't be so blunt about it. You had to be a little more subtle.
Which brings us to the internet age, the late 90s. And this is where I think the story takes a really interesting turn, because we leave the arcade and enter the world of MUDs.
Multi-user dungeons. For anyone who doesn't know, these were the text-based ancestors of games like World of Warcraft.
No graphics?
Zero graphics, just text on a screen describing the room you were in, the monsters you were fighting, the spells you were casting. You'd type, kill orc, and press enter.
And there's one specific game here, Achaea, Dreams of Divine Lands, launched in 1997. Now, why is a text game from the 90s so important for modern monetization?
Because of AOL.
AOL. The you've got mail people. What do they have to do with this?
The very same. You have to remember the context. In the mid-90s, online services like AOL, CompuServe, they charged by the hour. You paid for every minute you were connected to the internet.
Yeah, I remember that. My parents yelling at me to get off the phone line.
Exactly. So for MUDs, their business model was simple. They just needed to keep you logged in. They made money just by keeping you playing. They didn't need to sell you items. They just needed your time. But around 1996, AOL shifted to flat rate pricing.
Right, the unlimited access for, was it $19.99 a month?
Yep, which was great for users, but I'm guessing terrible for the games that relied on those hourly fees.
Oh, it was an extinction-level event. It killed their revenue stream overnight. The developers of Achaea, a company called Iron Realms Entertainment, were staring at bankruptcy. They had this game, they had players who loved it, but no way to pay for the servers. Necessity is the mother of invention. or in this case, the mother of microtransactions.
Pretty much. They came up with a solution that is now standard in almost every free-to-play game. They called it dual currencies.
Okay, break that down.
You had your standard in-game gold that you earned by killing monsters, doing quests, the normal stuff. But then you could buy credits with real-world money.
And what could you buy with credits? Just cosmetic stuff? A nice text-based hat for your text avatar?
I wish. No, you could buy artifacts.
Yeah.
And these were incredibly powerful items that gave you massive gameplay advantages. We're talking about items that cost hundreds of real-world dollars.
Hundreds for an item in a text game.
Some individual items were $700. To fully max out a character with the best gear, the stuff bought with credits, it could cost around $2,500. And this is in 1997 dollars. There are reports of a single player spending over $20,000 on their character.
$20,000 in the late 90s. That's a car. That's a down payment on a house for text.
It is. And this proves something absolutely crucial to the industry. The existence of whales.
Right, the casino term for the high rollers.
Exactly. IKEA proved that the ceiling for spending wasn't 25 cents. It wasn't even $60. If you gave players the opportunity to spend unlimited amounts of money for power, a very, very small percentage of them, the whales would actually do it.
And that small percentage could fund the entire game for everyone else.
They could, and they did.
That's a terrifying realization for a business model. Because once you know those people exist, you start designing for them, don't you? The whole game starts to bend around attracting and retaining those whales.
You do. And that design philosophy migrated from these niche text games to the mainstream with a game called MapleStory in 2003.
MapleStory. I remember this one. Cute, side-scrolling, very bright anime style. It looked completely innocent.
It looked innocent, but it was an absolute pioneer. It popularized the free-to-play or freemium model on a massive global scale. You could download and play for free for as long as you wanted.
There was a cash shop.
There was a cash shop. And initially, it was pretty harmless. It was mostly cosmetic stuff, outfits, pets, things to make you look cool.
The classic, I just want to express myself, monetization. No harm, no foul.
Right. But then came the slide. The inevitable slide. It started with cosmetics, but soon they added XP multipliers to let you level up faster. Then stat boosts. Then items that gave you a direct power advantage.
So it normalized that transition from paying to look cool to paying for power.
Exactly. And because the game was free, the barrier to entry was zero. Millions of kids got hooked, and then the spending started. It was a gentle introduction to the idea of paying for an advantage.
It's the classic drug dealer model, isn't it? First one's free, get them hooked on the game, then slowly introduce the ways they can spend.
In a way, yes. But the moment that really broke into the mainstream consciousness, the moment everyone remembers, the one that became a meme happened in 2006.
Oh, I know what's coming. We have to talk about the horse armor.
The infamous horse armor. The Elder Scrolls 4. Oblivion. A massive, critically acclaimed $60 single-player RPG. A masterpiece.
A full-price game.
A full-priced game. And Bethesda releases a downloadable content pack, a DLC. And this pack gives your in-game horse a set of armor.
And the price.
200 Microsoft points, which is about $2.50.
And the internet exploded.
It was ridiculed relentlessly. People just could not believe it. They mocked the price-to-value ratio. Why would I pay $250 for a digital horse blanket that does literally nothing? It doesn't even make the horse faster. It became a meme before we really used the word meme that way.
But here's the kicker, right? We all laughed. We all made fun of it. But
it sold. It sold millions.
Millions.
And that is the tragedy, or perhaps the brilliance, depending on your perspective. Despite the mockery, despite the outrage, the data showed developers that players would pay for small, cosmetic, digital add-ons in a game they had already paid full price for.
It proves the market existed, even inside single-player games.
It was the spark that ignited the modern era of DLC and microtransactions in console gaming. After Horse Armor, the floodgates were open.
So Lost Tomb was the first drip, IKEA showed us the whales, and Horse Armor proved you could sell almost anything to the masses. But those were still, for the most part, direct purchases. You pay money, you get the item.
Right. It was honest commerce, in a sense. You knew what you were buying.
But then things got complicated. We stopped buying items and we started buying chances. Let's talk about Section 2, decoding the mechanics, specifically the rise of the loot box.
This is where the psychology gets much more sophisticated, much more subtle. The loot box. By definition, it's a virtual container, a chest, a card pack, a crate that gives you a randomized assortment of items when you open it.
And the grandfather of this, at least in the modern sense, is FIFA.
FIFA Ultimate Team, launched in 2009. This changed everything for Electronic Arts. Instead of just picking a real team like Manchester United, you could build your own fantasy team. But to get the players for your team, you had to open packs.
Like baseball cards. You buy a pack of Topps cards and hope you get a Ken Griffey Jr.
Exactly like baseball cards, but with instant gratification, endless supply, and a whole lot of theatrical presentation.
What do you mean by presentation?
It's not just a menu that says you got player X. When you buy a pack, the screen shakes, fireworks go off, lights flash, there's this big buildup, the card spins around, and boom, you get a mediocre defender from a second-tier league.
So you feel that little rush of anticipation and then the disappointment.
And then you think, well, maybe the next one has Messi in it, so you buy another one and another one. The revenue growth here was absolutely staggering. By 2012, it was a huge revenue driver. By 2021, EA was making $1.62 billion from Ultimate Team modes alone.
$1.5 billion a year. From just one mode in a handful of sports games.
It's more than most entire games make in their lifetime.
And the key difference here from the horse armor is that with horse armor, I pay $250, I get the armor. With loot boxes, I could pay $250 10 times, 100 times, and still not get the specific player I want.
Correct. It decouples the spend from the reward. It introduces what psychologists call variable ratio reinforcement, which we'll get to in the psychology section, but essentially it turns the game into a slot machine.
Okay, so loot boxes got a lot of heat, a lot of controversy, which we'll definitely discuss. But then we saw the rise of what feels like the industry's answer to that criticism. The Battle Pass.
Yes.
Feels like they said, okay, you hate randomization. Here's a list of everything you can get, no surprises.
In a way, yes. The Battle Pass really started with Dota 2's Compendium back in 2013, which was a way to fund their big tournament. But it was Fortnite in 2018 that made it a cultural phenomenon.
Everyone knows the Fortnite Battle Pass. How does that mechanic work, specifically?
Yeah.
Why is it so effective at getting people to spend $10 every few months?
It's a tiered system. It's brilliant in its simplicity. You have a season that lasts maybe 10 to 12 weeks. As you play the game, you earn XP, and that XP levels up your pass, level 1, level 2, up to level 100.
And there's a free track and a pay track.
And that duality is the core psychological trick. As a free player, you are still leveling up, you're still making progress. You unlock the free rewards, maybe a little spray or an icon, nothing too exciting.
Right.
But every single time you level up, the game shows you the premium reward you would have gotten if you had just paid for the pass.
Oh, that's diabolical. So it's constantly dangling what you're missing out on right in front of your face. It's like, look at this cool skin you earned, but you can't touch it unless you pay us $10.
It creates a sense of what some researchers call pre-delivered content. You feel like you already own it because you did the work. You earned the XP. So paying the $10 feels like you're just claiming what's rightfully yours rather than buying something new.
And it also leverages FOMO, right? Fear of missing out.
Massively. Usually, if you don't finish the pass by the end of the season, those items are gone forever. It creates this intense pressure to play constantly.
It effectively weaponizes your own time against you.
Right.
Play our game every day, or all the effort you put in last week will be for nothing.
It does. Although I should note that some newer games are shifting this, which is a positive sign.
Well,
Games like Halo Infinite and Helldivers 2 have introduced non-expiring passes. You buy it, and you can take a year to finish it if you want. It respects the player's time much more than the traditional Fortnite model, which really demands that you make the game a part-time job.
that's a good sign at least. A little bit of pushback against the FOMO machine. But then we have the third titan of monetization, the one that arguably brings in the most money now in the mobile space.
Gotcha.
Gacha. The term comes from gachapon, which are those Japanese capsule toy vending machines.
Right. You see them in supermarkets.
Yeah, put a coin in, you crank the handle, the sound is gacha, and the capsule drops out, the sound is gacha. Gachapon.
I see gotcha games everywhere now. Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, these games are massive. How is this different from a loot box? Isn't it just the same thing with an anime art style?
It seems that way on the surface, but there are two key differences. First, in most Western loot boxes, like in Overwatch or Fortnite back when they had them, the items were usually cosmetic. Skins, voice lines, things that don't affect gameplay.
Okay.
In gacha games, you are almost always rolling for characters and weapons that fundamentally alter how you play the game. They have different stats, different abilities.
So if I want to play as the cool new fire wizard who does massive damage, I have to gamble for him. I can't just earn him. You have to gamble. And that leads to the second crucial difference. There is often no cash shop for these characters. You cannot just pay $50 and buy the character directly. You must play the lottery.
That seems incredibly risky for the player and kind of hostile. Why do people put up with it?
Because the games are, frankly, very good. They mitigate the risk with extremely high production value. These games are usually free, they have massive open worlds, incredible orchestral music, fully voiced storylines, and characters with deep, compelling backstories.
So you fall in love with the character first.
You get emotionally attached,
Yeah.
and then when their banner comes up, which is the limited time window to get them, you feel compelled to pull the lever. It's an emotional purchase, not just a gameplay one.
And I've heard terms like a pity system. What is that? Is that the game feeling sorry for you?
It's essentially bad luck mitigation. The game's code will guarantee that after, say, 90 failed attempts, your 90th pull will be a high-tier character.
So it's a safety net.
It is a safety net, but it's a safety net hanging over a very, very deep pit. Because what it also does is anchor the price of a character in your mind.
How so?
If you know you will get it after 90 pulls, and each pull costs roughly $2, well, the game has just implicitly told you that a character is worth $180. And once you accept that, spending $30 or $40 trying to get lucky seems reasonable by comparison.
That is heavy. And it transitions perfectly into Section 3.
Yeah.
Because none of this is accidental, right? This isn't just developers throwing ideas at the wall. This is science. This is applied psychology.
Absolutely. We are now entering the realm of dark patterns.
Let's get into the machinery of this. Because the research papers you send over, they're not talking about fun or gameplay loops. They're talking about cognitive biases and coercion.
Right. The source material from these academic studies defines dark patterns as design strategies that exploit known cognitive biases to coerce you into unwanted behavior, usually spending money or grinding for hours without your full informed consent.
So it's using the glitches in the human brain to make money.
That's a very good way to put it. And the researchers broke these down into a few main categories.
Okay, let's unpack them. First up, temporal dark patterns. This is about manipulating time.
Right. The most common one is grinding. We've all felt this in a game. The progress slows to a crawl, the game becomes tedious, repetitive, you're killing the same 10 rats for 1% of a level for hours and hours.
And then magically a button pops up. Pay $5 to skip this and get the reward now.
Exactly, that is pay to skip. But think about what that implies. The developers intentionally created a problem boredom so they could sell you the solution. They broke the legs of the game's pacing so they could sell you the crutches.
It's kind of predatory, isn't it? It's like digital racketeering. Nice fun game you have here, shame if it was. Boring all of a sudden.
It is. Another temporal pattern that's very common in mobile games is playing by appointment.
Like, come back at 8 p.m. for the clan raid.
Or, your crops will be ready to harvest in exactly 4 hours. If you don't log in and harvest them, they'll wither and you'll lose them.
Right.
It forces you to schedule your real life around the game's clock. If you miss the appointment, you are punished. It creates a powerful habit loop that's very hard to break because it imposes a real consequence for not playing.
And that ties directly into FOMO, which we mentioned before.
Fear of missing out. This
Yeah.
is maybe the most powerful temporal pattern. Daily login bonuses, limited time events, exclusive holiday items. Log in today to get this exclusive sword. It will never be available again.
It creates artificial scarcity.
And anxiety. You're not playing because you necessarily want to. You're playing because you're afraid of losing out on an opportunity that will never come back.
Okay, so that's time. Then we have the monetary dark patterns. We talked about pay to skip. But what about this one? Invested value, or as it's more commonly known, the sunk cost fallacy.
This is huge, especially in MMORPGs like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV. Imagine you have spent 500 hours building a character. You've been paying a subscription for 2 years. Even if you aren't really having fun anymore, you feel like you can't quit.
Because you would be wasting all that time and money you already put in.
Exactly. Your brain hates the idea of that investment going to zero, so the game leverages your past self to trap your future self.
It's like being in a bad relationship. You can't leave because, well, we've been together for so long.
It's the exact same psychological principle, and the game designers know this. That's why every expansion adds just enough new goals to keep you on that treadmill, ensuring you never feel like your past effort has been wasted.
And finally, we have the social dark patterns.
Yeah.
This one creeped me out the most when I was reading the notes. Impersonation. What is that?
Yes, this is when the game sends you a push notification to your phone that looks like it's from a friend.
Oh, no.
It'll say something like, your friend Steve is waiting for you in the dungeon, or Steve just sent you a gift.
But Steve didn't send me anything. The algorithm did.
Right. It's a machine impersonating your friend to exploit your sense of social guilt. You don't want to let Steve down, so you log in.
That's messed up.
There's also social obligation, which is very real in guilds and clans. If you don't log in and do your daily tasks, you might be holding your whole team back from getting a reward. So you play when you're sick, you play when you're tired, you play when you have other things to do, because you have a social contract with real people.
It weaponizes friendship.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
It turns your friends into retention mechanics for the game.
That is heavy. And it leads us directly to the real-world consequences, because we're not just talking about adults with fully formed brains making rational decisions here. We're talking about Section 4, the human cost. And specifically, we have to talk about children.
This is where the ethical debate gets really, really heated, and for good reason. Children do not have the same impulse control or the same understanding of money as adults, and we have countless stories of bill shock.
Like the story in the notes about the UK family. 4 kids, 1 FIFA account on the family console.
Yes. The father bought a single pack of players for £8, just one. But he didn't realize that the console had saved his credit card details.
Oh, boy.
Over the next 3 weeks, the kids, who were all under 10 years old, spent £550, that's nearly $700 on more packs. They were trying to find their hero, Lionel Messi.
And they didn't even get him, did they?
They did not. And when the parents confronted them, the kids didn't understand the real-world value. They weren't trying to spend money. They were just playing the game, chasing the hero. To a 10-year-old, the concept of a bank account is abstract. The desire for Messi is immediate and very, very real.
There's also a really sad social element to this that goes beyond money. Bullying. Specifically, bullying based on cosmetic skins.
This is a modern playground phenomenon. In Fortnite, the default skin, the generic outfit you start with for free, it became a stigma, a mark of shame. Kids were calling each other defaults as an insult. Oh, yeah. It became a marker of being poor or being bad at the game or both.
That's heartbreaking. So if your parents won't or can't spend money on the game, you're the outcast on the playground.
Exactly. So now you have peer pressure, you have bullying, and you have kids pressuring their friends to spend money just so they can watch the pack opening or loot box opening ritual. It becomes a spectator sport. Hey, open a loot box. Let's see what you get.
It normalizes gambling behaviors at a very, very young age. Which brings us to the gambling connection. You mentioned variable ratio reinforcement earlier. Can we break that down? What does that actually mean for the brain?
It's a core term from behavioral psychology, famously studied by B.F. Skinner with rats in a box. It's pretty simple. If you have a rat press a lever and it gets a food pellet every single time, it eventually gets bored.
Okay.
If it presses the lever and never gets a pellet, it gives up. But if it presses the lever and gets a pellet sometimes, at unpredictable intervals, that creates the strongest, most compulsive, most addictive response in the brain.
The just one more try feeling. Maybe this time.
Exactly. It floods the brain with dopamine, not when you get the reward, but in anticipation of the reward. It's the maybe. And loot boxes are designed with this exact mechanic at their core. They also use a trick called the near miss.
What's that?
You know when you spin a prize wheel in a game and it slows down and it ticks past the jackpot and lands on the cheap prize right next to it?
And you go, I was so close.
You weren't. That's the trick. The result was determined by a random number generator the nanosecond you click the spin button. The visual of the wheel slowing down and almost hitting the jackpot is pure theater.
So it's a lie.
It's a psychological manipulation designed to make you feel like your luck is about to turn so you'll spin again.
That is incredibly manipulative. And speaking of gambling, we have to talk about the CSGU skin scandal of 2016. Because this wasn't just in-game mechanics. This spilled out into the real world in a huge, ugly way.
This is the Wild West. For context, the game Counter-Strike. Global Offensive has cosmetic weapon skins that have real monetary value. You can sell them on the Steam marketplace for hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars.
So they are effectively casino chips. They have a cash value.
Yes. And because they had value, dozens of third-party websites popped up that let you link your Steam account and use these skins to bet. You could bet your skins on roulette, coin flips, jackpot sites, you name it.
And kids were doing this.
Anyone could access them. There was very little, if any, age verification. And the whole thing exploded into a massive scandal when it was revealed that two huge YouTubers, Trevor Martin, known as Stamart, and Thomas Cassell, known as Syndicate, were heavily promoting a site called CSGO Lotto.
Right, they were making these slick videos. I just won big. Look at this $1,000 pot I just took home.
Yes! Screaming, celebrating huge wins, telling their millions of young subscribers to check out the site that it was the best place to win.
But there was a catch.
A huge one. What they didn't tell their audience was that they owned the site.
They owned the casino they were betting in.
They were the president and vice president of the company. They had access to the back end. They could arguably rig the odds, or at the very least, play with house money to create these exciting, winning videos. It was massively deceptive marketing on a grand scale.
That sounds completely illegal.
The FTC eventually intervened, but it was largely a slap on the wrist. They were told not to do it again. However, it blew the lid off this massive, unregulated gray market where digital items were being used for illegal gambling, often by minors. It showed the world that these skins weren't just pixels. They were a currency.
It's incredible that it went on for as long as it did. But eventually, the dam breaks. There comes a point where the gamers say, enough. And that brings us to Section 5, the backlash.
And the flashpoint for that, the moment everything boiled over, was 2017, Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Oh, I remember this vividly. The great Reddit moment.
This was the perfect storm. You had Star Wars, one of the most beloved IPs on the planet. You had EA, a massive publisher that many gamers already distrusted. And you had a system where major iconic characters like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader were locked behind a massive grind wall.
And someone did the math on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Players calculated that it would take roughly 40 hours of gameplay just to unlock one of those heroes, or you could pay for loot boxes to get in-game credits faster.
So your options are pay us or quit your job and play Star Wars full-time.
Effectively. And when people complained loudly, EA's community team posted a response on Reddit. They tried to spin it. They said, and this is a direct quote, "The intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes."
Pride and accomplishment. I can still hear the collective scream of the internet from here.
That phrase lives in infamy. That single comment became the most downvoted comment in the entire history of Reddit. As of today, it has over 675,000 downvotes. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was a digital riot.
And it actually worked.
It did. The backlash was so immediate and so massive that Disney, the owner of Star Wars, reportedly called the CEO of EA, concerned about the brand damage. Just before launch, EA completely removed the microtransactions from the game. It forced a massive redesign. It proved that organized consumer pressure can work.
And we saw something similar with Middle-earth, Shadow of War, right?
Yes, that same year, a single-player game based on Lord of the Rings. And they put loot boxes in it where you could buy orcs to build your army.
Which feels wrong.
It broke the lore, it broke the immersion, and it broke the game balance. The backlash was so severe that Warner Bros. Eventually apologized and removed the store entirely months after the game launched.
And then more recently, Diablo Immortal in 2022.
This was the extreme end of the spectrum. A mobile game in the Diablo universe where to fully max out a character with the best possible gems, estimates from players and analysts put the cost at over $100,000.
$100,000 for a character in a mobile game. That is life-changing money for most human beings.
It was review bombed into oblivion. It has one of the lowest Metacritic user scores of all time. But, and here's the uncomfortable truth we have to face, it still made hundreds of millions of dollars.
Because the whales are still there.
Because the whales are still there, and they don't care about Metacritic scores. But all this backlash did trigger something else, government intervention.
Right. Governments finally started paying attention to the fact that kids were basically playing on slot machines.
Belgium and the Netherlands were the first to act decisively. They looked at loot boxes, particularly the kind in FIFA, and said, this is chance-based, it costs real money, and the items have a transferable value. This meets our definition of gambling.
So they banned them.
They declared specific implementations illegal. And so games like Overwatch and FIFA had to completely disable those features for players in those countries. You just couldn't buy loot boxes there anymore.
And China took a different approach, didn't they?
China focused on transparency. They passed a law requiring developers to publish the exact drop rates. So now, for any loot box or gacha pull, they have to tell you the chance of getting this legendary character is 0.6%.
Which is nice, I guess. But does it actually stop people? Knowing
Yeah.
the odds are terrible doesn't stop people from playing the lottery.
Not really. It doesn't stop the gambling, but it allows players to make a more informed decision about just how bad the odds really are. It removes the mystery, but not the temptation.
What about here in the U.S.? We love to regulate things.
There have been attempts. Senator Josh Hawley introduced the Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act back in 2019, which would have banned loot boxes and pay-to-win mechanics in games marketed to minors. But it stalled in committee. It failed to pass. The U.S. has largely left it to the industry to self-regulate.
And has the industry self-regulated? How has it responded to all this?
To an extent, we are seeing a slow but steady shift away from blind loot boxes. That's why the Battle Pass has become so popular.
Ah, because it's transparent.
It's transparent. You know exactly what you are getting for your money. It neatly sidesteps the gambling label while still retaining the powerful FOMO and the daily engagement loops that keep you playing.
So they changed the trap, but it's still a trap.
It is a more transparent trap. But yes, the ultimate goal is still to extract maximum value from the player's time and money.
So we've covered a lot, from 25-cent whips in Lost Tomb all the way to $100,000 gems in Diablo Immortal. We've looked at the psychology, the dark patterns, the kids draining their parents' bank accounts. It feels pretty overwhelming. What does this all mean for us, the players, going forward?
I think it means that the line between gaming and gambling has been blurred, perhaps permanently. Developers are not just artists anymore. They are behavioral psychologists. They are using these sophisticated dark patterns to hack our brains. And regulators are struggling to catch up because the technology always moves faster than the law.
It sounds like we're outgunned. We are bringing a controller to a psychological knife fight.
In many ways, we are. But there is a final thought I want to leave you with, a really provocative one from one of our sources. One author noted, very simply, "It is the customer who determines what a business produces."
Ah, the mirror. Turning it back on us.
Every time we pre-order a game that we know has a predatory cash shop, every time we buy a cosmetic skin, every time we pay $5 to skip a grind because we're tired, are we casting a vote for this system?
We say we hate it. We complain on Reddit. We downvote their comments.
We say we hate it, but that $111 billion revenue figure says we love it. Or at the very least, we are willing to tolerate it in exchange for free content.
That is a tough pill to swallow. Are we the victims or are we the enablers?
Perhaps we're both, but I think awareness is the first step to reclaiming agency. Knowing what a dark pattern is, recognizing when a game is trying to manipulate your sunk cost fallacy, that is how you fight back. When you see that limited time offer banner flash, you need to be able to pause and ask yourself, is this actually rare and valuable, or is this just pixels designed to make me feel anxious?
So next time you see that shiny offer pop up in a game, remember, it's not just a game. It's a carefully engineered psychological test. And the question is, will you pass?
Or will you pay?
Oof. On that note, thanks for listening to The Deep Dives. Keep your wallet safe, watch out for the dark patterns, and we'll catch you on the next one.